Arne Dahl. You have been named as one of Sweden's finest crime writers of today. Your 10 books in the Intercrime series have been translated into more than 25 languages. Why do you think your books meet this interest from readers all over the world?
That's a good question, and it probably falls apart in two different questions. Why is Swedish literature in general, or crime fiction, so popular? And there is a big interest in Sweden. It's been a model country for a long time, and often considered a bit of a paradise, and it's always interesting to see crimes committed in paradise. But that's one part. Then it's my own personal books. I guess they are a little different from most crime fiction, the Arne Dahl books, because it's not one single, very dominant protagonist. It's a lot of people, a team working together. So it's a sort of collective story about a well-functioning teamwork, which is quite rare in crime fiction. So I think it's about the humanity of the police officers and their internal relationships. And that's probably one of the things that is interesting for a big audience around the world.
Yes, and many of your successful stories have also reached new attention when made into film and TV series. And when talking to international media, do they ask about Sweden, the society, and is there a difference from which countries?
Yes, that's very interesting. It's very, very interesting to travel around the world and see how your work is received and how the image of Sweden differs from country to country. In, for example, Britain, if you want to have that basic example, they are very interested in the crime story itself and how it's constructed and how it's functioning. In, for example, Latin America, where I was recently, in Uruguay, they're very interested in the Swedish society. And the Germans, for example, they're very interested in violence for some reason. How can you use so much violence in a country that's so non-violent? I don't think I use so much violence, but it's interesting to notice these small differences. And the further away from Sweden you get, the more interested I think the people are in the country itself, because it's a certain exotism involved. We have been, over the years, a little bit isolated here in the northern parts of Europe.
And Latin America is still quite a new region for Swedish writers, so it's interesting to hear you just visited Montevideo and a festival there. And so what were your impressions in general?
It seems that they too have realized that Swedish or Scandinavian crime fiction is quite good. And they've actually broadcasted my TV series, Arne Dahl, this summer, so they knew more about me than I ever could imagine.
And you also met with the Swedish ambassador, Gufran al-Nadaf, in Buenos Aires, and her staff. And can I ask you, how do you think Swedish embassies best can help promoting Swedish literature in the world?
I think Swedish embassies in general have been pretty good at promoting Swedish literature even before this big crime boom started. So they have a well-worked system of doing it. But now it's different. Now you get more audiences automatically. And I think I was very well received by the Argentinian ambassador and her staff. So they realized that if they can promote local initiatives of different kinds, that's very good. But they can also have their own initiatives with Swedish literature. And I think it's working very well.
A last question. You are also interacting with readers on Facebook and on Twitter. How come?
I think the role of the writer in the world has changed very much in the last decade or so. We used to be anti-social, if you like. We were supposed to sit in our rooms and write, and we were not supposed to do anything else. Nowadays you have to meet the audience, you have to meet the press, and you have to sort of alternate very rapidly between being an introvert and an extrovert. And Twitter and Facebook, for example, all social medias have helped in that process. You are getting closer to your readers. There's more communication going on between writer and reader in different ways. And the writer is no longer the isolated guy or girl sitting in the small chamber and never breathing healthy air. It's more of a social work nowadays, which is probably good. When you have written 25 books or whatever it is I've written, I think I should probably be out in the world more.
And we are also very glad you could come here today and talk to us. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.